In other news, recent major floods left river basin communities in Europe and urban neighborhoods in China caught off guard, causing widespread destruction and numerous deaths. Experts are wondering why residents were not evacuated despite advance warning and why alert systems were not properly implemented, issues that will only increase in severity as this type of climate-driven event intensifies. Joining us now, Dr. William Veerbeek, senior lecturer and researcher of the Flood Resilience Chair Group at the United Nations Delft Institute for Water Education. Doctor, welcome to the show. Why were these communities, of course, why were these communities caught off guard during these floods? I mean, these images are incredible, especially with advance warning.
Well, first of all, in both cases, both in China as well in Germany and Belgium, these were almost unprecedented weather events. In China, this was mainly central China. These types of rainstorms almost never occur. The same goes for Germany as well as Belgium, where these kinds of flash floods typically occur mostly in the south of Germany. So first of all, the people as well as local authorities were somewhat off guard by the extreme level of precipitation that fell down on them. On the other hand, also the tools were in place. So there was, to some extent, an early warning message given to residents, but not always to the same level. First of all, in Germany, there's no such thing as a phone-based alerting system. This is due to privacy concerns. Now, only after the floods, Germany is starting thinking about implementing such a system. So let's say a widespread alerting did not take place, but much more on an old-fashioned way. And in Belgium, well, forecasting figures differed between the different regions. And you saw that some villages that were hit by these floods were evacuated, while others not. Same goes a bit in China, where also this area, the floods were definitely underestimated, even though the tools were in place for early warning.
Doctor, what happens to coastal cities and communities, both big and small? You mentioned, Germany didn't have that alarm system. Do you think that that will change? Will these communities disappear?
Well, the communities won't disappear, but definitely there will be much more pressure now to implement these, definitely in Germany. We see now that obviously, and that's the cynical lesson, of course, of these types of events, both the communities as well as the local authorities will definitely act differently once similar rainfall events start to happen. But you could say now we are in a phase where we are building back, especially in Germany. We've seen massive destruction, especially of these smaller villages and towns. And the question there is really, should we build back? Should we build back better even, or should we move those communities to different locations?
How do you rebuild a community after massive flooding like we're seeing on our screen? How can we prevent the same level of destruction in the future, Dr. Veerbeek?
Well, that first of all, we should focus on where we locate our most vulnerable functions and our primary infrastructure. So things like hospitals, but also things like power supply, water supply, these kinds of functions, they should not be directly located in the floodplain. So there's a big task here for urban planners, for architects to really start rethinking how they design towns and how they design cities. Secondly, we know where the floods take place. This is no mystery. We have the models in place. So this is merely an issue of, well, slowly relocating these kind of communities and building more sturdy buildings and definitely focusing on preparedness. So if such an event again occurs, that we are sure that we get the people out of there in time.
What are the lessons learned here, Doctor? What can governments, including here in the U.S., do to better prepare?
Yeah. Well, we in the Netherlands, I'm from the Netherlands actually, we have suffered relatively little from these floods. One of the reasons for that is that we had a 10-year massive investment Room for the River program in place, where we give much more space to water and our waterways. That program has cost billions of euros and took a long time to implement, and still takes a lot of money, but it starts to pay off now. We see very little impacts compared to these locations in Germany, in Belgium, and to some extent also in China. Of course, the locations are a bit different in terms of circumstances. These were hilly areas. Our country is mainly a river delta. But the general lesson, giving more space to water, accepting that we have to live with water, is an important one, and therefore should be really at the top priority of future strategies and policies.
We really appreciate your time and insight, Dr. William Veerbeek, Senior Lecturer and Researcher of the Flood Resilience Chair Group at the United Nations Delft Institute for Water Education. Thank you again, sir.